Hi everyone, welcome to OCD Live. I'm Ali Greymond. So today let's start out with some questions. Okay, question number one. Are we predetermined to get OCD? And I get this question a lot from my clients and just from people emailing me. Um, I would say that yes and no. Um, yes, in a way that I find that most people who I've talked to kind of are similar in the way they kind of are. Yeah, what I mean by that, they're all very intelligent. They have pretty good lives. They are very sensitive, and they're prone to anxiety. So in just regular life, they would get anxious rather than go into a depression or into an anger or something like that. They're more they're more prone to anxiety. So if you have that kind of base, right, you're born like that. Everybody has a different personality. Your personality is that. um, I think you are more likely um, to get OCD. Another quality that I see a lot in people who I talk to, as well as myself, all of this applies to me as well, is that I find that people who have OCD, they tend to be very analytical in their nature. Like they have to dig deep and try to figure things out. They're interested in things. They're a lot of the times I find that people who I talk to have very kind of like high educational degrees, right? So this all is very common for people who do have OCD. They're very driven. So and then these kind of qualities can really make you susceptible to getting OCD basically. But at the same time, it's not in the way that you're not guaranteed to have OCD just because you have those qualities. There's so many people who have those qualities and don't have OCD. And I find that, it doesn't have anything to do with childhood. It doesn't have anything to do if you have a good life or a bad life. Like if you feel like you have like you're in a bad situation or if you're in a really good situation. I see people from basically all walks of life. But, it's just that at one point you were at the edge. Maybe you didn't feel it, but your brain felt it. And at that point, it sent you a thought. And it probably sent you thoughts a lot of the time before that. But in that specific moment, on this specific day, it sent you a thought. And for some reason, you took it seriously. And you took it seriously for one day, then you took it seriously for 1 week, and you couldn't drop it, and you kept going with it. Your mind saw that new pattern being created and started to think, oh, okay, this is a new pattern. So that means that this thought is important, this thought is relevant, I better pay more attention to it. I better send more of these thoughts. So it started to send more thoughts. And as it sends more and more, and you're paying attention more and more, it's flagging it as having more and more importance. So it becomes what we talked about, the snowball effect. So yes, you are more, if you have those qualities, you are more likely to get OCD than somebody who's, for example, happy-go-lucky, doesn't really care about things that deep, is very kind of not a deep thinker. Those people are much less likely to get OCD. But just because you have these qualities, it doesn't mean you can you should get OCD or you would get OCD. Um, and a lot of the times I find that people who have these qualities and channel them into work become very successful in what they do, because they're focusing all that, hyper attention that the mind can give. They're focusing it on work and something productive rather than something unproductive. So, people like Steve Jobs, for example, like he was very kind of obsessive in his nature of creating a good product, right? But it never transferred in. Well, we don't know, right? But it wasn't like from what we know, it wasn't an OCD issue because he was channeling it into something else, right? Again, this is hearsay because we don't know. But I do think that really helps, is having somewhere to channel that attention to detail, all of that stuff. So yeah, so basically yes and no. Yes, it could be, and maybe not necessarily. And this is the other thing too, that is like the other question to this: is OCD hereditary? That it could be hereditary in a way that your family members share those traits, and are prone to anxiety, and they can all, based just on that, an OCD can spring up. And again, if they react the wrong way and all of this, then it can become a problem for them, just like it does for you. And then I talk to people who have family members who don't have OCD, like 2 siblings, 3 siblings, only one of them has OCD, so that's a common thing as well. So it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody in the family would have OCD. Okay, so next question is, how can I maximize the speed of my progress? By the way, if you guys have any questions, please put it in the chat window and I'll answer them as I get them. Okay, how do I maximize the speed of my progress? So your speed of recovery is directly related to how much reassurance, avoidance, and basically how much you are paying attention to the thought. If you're paying attention to the thought, say 90% of the time, then your recovery is going to be very, very slow, because you're only allowing 10%, really, right? Because 90% of the time you're doing the wrong thing. And that's actually not even recovery, because you're over 50, so you're going backwards most of the time now. So always think of the recovery like a race. And it's from point A to point B. You have to do the right things more than 50% of the time in order to keep progressing forward. Because if you're doing 50% even, then you're basically, one time you do the right thing, one time you do the wrong thing, you're just staying in the same spot. You're not really going further, or if you're doing less than 50, then you're basically, maybe you're doing better than before, but you're still not moving forward in the recovery, So what I would say is just really kind of make every moment, every day, don't wait for some magical time. Right now, next thought. If you're having a thought right now, then this is the thought. Just ignore it. You had this thought a million times before, or similar thought. It never came true before. This one is not special. It's exactly the same. And you know that you thought the other ones were special. So this is not the, like super thought that is true. None of them are true. They're all OCD, and as long as you treat them all as OCD, you will feel better. But you just have to be very forceful with it and say, I'm not dealing with this. This is the same thing again. I'm not paying attention to it. And that kind of attitude is a step forward. And notice how, not just what I'm saying, but how I'm saying it. You're coming from a position of power. You, like the real you, your soul, you are the most important in this equation, not the OCD. When a person gets OCD, they lose control in a way that OCD takes over. They're kind of like the slave to OCD. OCD says, do this compulsion, they do this compulsion. OCD says, do that compulsion, they do that compulsion. And it doesn't matter how silly it is, how much out of the way they have to go to do it, they'll still do it because they become a slave, basically. So you have to take back that power and say, you know what, forget it, no more. And then you'll start progressing forward. And basically, the more you do this, the more you're maximizing the speed of the recovery every day. So today you did your max, tomorrow you did your max, then the day after that you did your max, and then you start to really see the progress. Okay, so another question I have here. What if this method does not work? Okay, so the basic thing is, you're reprogramming your mind. So there is not really a way for the method not to work, because just like it logically makes sense. Just like you told your brain all the time that these kind of thoughts are true, I better check, I better make sure. Now you're telling your brain, these thoughts are not true, I'm not going to check, I'm not going to make sure. So just like you got yourself into it, that's how you're getting yourself out of it. It's not magic, it just works, and I mean, I have so many clients who've recovered, and most people, when I start talking to them, they've been to many doctors, they're tired, they're sick of the disorder. They don't really think that they're gonna recover. And then as we start to do this, and me continuously supporting them, they see that, oh, okay, it's actually working. And then as they see it, they get more inspired to even kind of go further in the recovery and be more brave, because it's at first it's hard to be brave when you've done all this stuff and nothing works and you feel kind of very low. But when you start to see, oh wow, there is progress, then it just becomes much easier to keep going. So yeah, the only way this method doesn't work is if you just listen to what I'm saying, or if you just read my books, or do the program, but you're not actually following what I'm asking you to do. Because there's a huge difference between just listening and then actually doing something, right? So and I do have clients from time to time who just are not ready. And I would say that it's not that people can't recover, like some people can't recover. It's just that they may not be ready in their present moment to recover. And this has to do also with the rest of their life as well. That sometimes if you're dealing with a lot of stress, you're not addressing OCD the way you could if you didn't have this additional stress in your life. Or even if it's good stress, good or bad stress. Like an example of a bad stress would be, for example, like losing their job. Or an example of a good stress would be like having a baby, So it doesn't matter if it's good stress or bad stress. Your mind just views this as just general stress. So, and it can make OCD spike more and make it difficult to focus, because just for example, in these two examples, if you're running around trying to get a new job, and having to deal with OCD on top of it, you're gonna have a harder time catching all of the situations and refusing your response, right? Like refusing to pay attention to it, because your mind is somewhere else. Same thing when you have a baby, right? Baby screaming, you're not going to have a lot of time to kind of think, refocus, all of this stuff, right? So it just makes it a little more difficult. And, a lot of the times they come back later when they're more ready, and then they made a huge leap in their progress. So I see that a lot as well. So, don't think that, oh, if you have somebody else who's also recovering with you, that, oh, I'm doing worse than this person, or, oh, I'm doing better than this person. It's a personal race. You're not racing against everybody else, and everybody's mind is different. The recovery process is the same, but where each person is in how deep they got into OCD, as well as their current ability to recover based on their stress levels, based on just their mindset sometimes, like how they feel about the recovery, if they're ready, if they're not ready. Maybe they're just tired, maybe nothing really happened, but they're just tired from their everyday life or something like that. So it's just a race against yourself. Every day, just try to do the best you can. Like, honestly, I never thought I would recover. Never in a million years. I was in so deep, and there was no way. And now I'm recovered, and it just works. You just have to do the method, and I'm telling you, it just works. Okay, another question I have, can OCD go away on its own? Technically speaking, no. I mean, there are situations where I would say no, okay? The only kind of thing that would be kind of like OCD going away, it's not OCD going away, it's just the specific obsession going away, is, for example, if you're afraid of, say, you're afraid of snakes, for example, okay? And you work in, or you live in a place where there are snakes, like outside, like a warm climate, okay? You get a lot of OCD about snakes, you feel like you're seeing snakes everywhere, all of this stuff. Then you move to, I don't know, somewhere where it's like super cold and, I don't know, the North Pole. Let's just say, this is a hypothetical example. No snakes. You're gonna stop getting that OCD. Doesn't mean that your OCD is gone, but just that obsession is no longer relevant to your life. But usually when that happens, because your brain is still on the lookout for something, it's just gonna find something else to attach itself to. So it will go from one type of thought to another type of thought. You know, you might start to worry about something else. Usually it's like interconnected, so it will be in the same theme somehow. So for example, if a person worries about snakes and then they're on North Pole, for example, they start to worry, what if the ice cracks or something else on the ground. So there's always some sort of a connection between the two thoughts, because the mind is like trying to look for something in the same family, so to speak, because it thinks that those things are important, you know. So that's that. So yeah, so in a way, no, it doesn't really go away. Your obsession can switch, but it's gonna switch to something else with equal amount of anxiety. Okay, so I have another question here. Is what is the shortest time you have seen people recover? I have seen people recover in about a month. But again, you know, it doesn't mean that you're going slower or anything like that, just because it depends on how long the person had OCD. And, you know, it's like I really wish they would start teaching this stuff, you know, to children in school, you know, because this would eliminate the problem of OCD, because most people get severe OCD when they're around like teenagers, teenage years. Um, so if, you know, we just spend an hour out of our whole school system, you know, just spend an hour telling like children that if you get a thought and the thought starts to get severe, like always on your mind, don't pay attention to it. Refuse the reaction. You know, I'm telling you, they would never get OCD, because it's only if the thought becomes ingrained when you're doing the wrong stuff. So you get a thought, you get scared, you start to do compulsions or avoidance or reassurance or all three, whatever. All those are the same thing. So you start to do the wrong things, addressing the thought, and your mind sees that and creates like a pattern in your brain where these types of thoughts are dangerous to you. It thinks that they're dangerous, you know? So it's going to send you more of them. But if we just prepare the people before, like just tell them like to know this, right? That, you know, this is what happens if you know these things. You will never get it, because as soon as you get an intrusive thought, you might let it go for a day or two, and then you'll see, oh, that's an intrusive thought, I shouldn't be paying attention to it, you know. So it's just, I just wish for something like that. But going back to the question that what is the shortest time you have seen people recover, is the shortest time I have seen people recover depends on, like, the reason why they recovered fast is not because they're super people, but because they haven't had an obsession for that long, you know. And at the same time, they were kind of super people in the way that they tried really hard to recover as well. So they put all of their effort, and they weren't in that deep anyways, so their OCD might have been severe, but they've only had that severe OCD for, say, a month. So it will take them about a month to recover, not even, you know. But if the person had OCD for 10 years, it's going to take them, you know, about 6 months to recover, you know, at least, if they're putting in all the effort. So, and they could be putting the same amount of effort in, but it's just that the person who had it for 10 years, just, they really made it important to the mind, and the mind just has a hard time letting go of something that went on for so long. So that, like I said, you know, before, it's you're not racing against anybody else. It's you are doing what you need to do to recover. But if you are spending a day seeking reassurance, 2 days seeking reassurance, 3 days seeking reassurance, then you are pushing yourself backwards now. You know, so you're stopping your progress, and you're going back now. You know, and this is another question that I kind of get often is, if I have a slip in the recovery, so a thought comes in, I react to it, and then am I going backwards? And my answer is no, you're not going backwards, because if you made, say, 20 steps forward, and then the one time you slipped, did all this reassurance, you know, really kind of scared yourself, so you took a step back, maybe you took 2 or 3 steps back, but you've made so many steps forward before that, and your mind remembers that. So Not really. You're not really. You're taking a step back, and I don't see people going 10 steps forward and then not stopping themselves if they took a few steps back to make it all the way to where they started. Like, you would really have to be not watching what's happening, and that doesn't. I've never experienced it, and in all the years I've talked to people, I've never experienced a person fully going back on their progress. So usually what a person does is that, like, they'll take a two or three steps back, then they'll be like, oh no, I'm not getting back to where I was. I'm gonna keep going, and then they pick themselves up and get back to the recovery, to disregarding the thoughts and then the recovery. Okay, and then I have one more question here. How do I know if I'm handling OCD thought correctly? So handling OCD thought correctly means not paying attention to it in all of its forms. So that means no compulsions about the thought, no avoidance of the thought, no reassurance about the thought, no looking up stuff online about the thought, no trying to think back to the situation or predict the future situation depending on the type of thought. So you're the person who's powering your thoughts up. Whatever thoughts you give power to, those are the ones that are going to be most important. So you need to stop powering the OCD thoughts up and start powering up your other real life thoughts that you do want to focus on. And if you do this over time, then your brain starts to see these new patterns that you're making and goes to that program rather than the old program of paying attention to the OCD thoughts. The brain is very kind of plastic or kind of, not plastic, but like rubber in that sense that, it's moldable, it's changeable, it's not set in stone where, this is what it is. I'm getting OCD now, so I will always have it. All of it can be changed, so, but just basically, if you are doing those things, like if you are disregarding the thought in all forms, then you are handling the OCD thought correctly. So, okay, so we have some time. If you guys would like to ask me additional questions, you can do so in the chat. If there isn't any questions, then we'll pick it up again tomorrow, same time, same place. Just give you guys a second. Also, I just wanted to mention that if you need more help with OCD, my recovery program is available. Also, I do have a lot of books for sale. You can find all of that on youhaveocd.com. I should probably do a show specifically talking about the recovery program and what you can expect. But yeah, if you want to ask me something in private, you can email me directly to info@youhaveocd.com. Oh, thank you, Ray Rock. He's saying, or she's saying, all good points you made. And I'm thank you. I very much, honestly, I very much appreciate you guys listening. And this is kind of like grassroots. It's very kind of, I'm just myself doing this. And I'm hoping to continue this and to keep growing it because, I find that everybody kind of, not everybody, but it's for some reason helping people has become a huge business. And there is kind of, I understand that it takes time, but it shouldn't be how it is now. It shouldn't be about money. It should be about helping people recover. If a person is suffering, that could have been you. In my case, it was me. So if somebody emails me and says, oh, we can't pay for the program or whatever, or we can only pay a certain amount, then we work something out. I've never said no to anybody who has emailed me, unless the only time I say no if a person is underage, under the age of 18, because it's there could be complications with that, because I would need to speak with their parents and all of that. But in that case, I am open to talking with the parents and kind of going over the recovery plan for the child. But other than that, I don't say no to people. We figure it out basically, and I think that that's the approach that most doctors should take. They shouldn't turn you away at the door if you don't have money, or if whatever, and they should really know this stuff. That's what really bothers me, is that doctors should know this stuff. This shouldn't be something that you have to go on YouTube and research, or on Google and figure it out. You should know this, you should be taught this, because everybody suffers from intrusive thoughts. Even if you don't have OCD, you still suffer from this stuff. Just you don't suffer to this degree, but you still get thoughts that you don't like, and we don't know how to deal with those thoughts. We're not taught that. So we have to kind of do, just like me, I've done everything wrong. I've done reassurance, compulsions, avoidance, all of it, before I figured out that, okay, it's not working, you know? But it shouldn't be like that. There should be a better system, and this is not just one country or whatever. Because I talk to people from basically around the world. I talk to a lot of people from the States. I talk to a lot of people from Australia. I talk to a lot of people from UK. That's kind of the three places where for some reason I just get a lot of clients from these places. From time to time I have a person from like other European countries. Sometimes I have a person from Canada. It's rare, Most of the time it's States, Australia, and UK that I get kind of. So it's just that I think that these countries, they have a lot of resources. Why can't we put resources towards something that people suffer from so much, and just make it an open situation where if you get these thoughts, don't worry, this is how you deal with them. I don't understand why that's so hard. Anyways, as usual, I went into a rant. So I think we'll stop here, and then I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you again for all the support. I really, really appreciate it.